What's going on, everybody? This is your man, Dr. John C. Turner, aka the Professor JT, and I am here live on the Doc Chat. And I'm telling you, I got some real heavy hitters with us tonight, and we're going to have a great show as we're talking about how you can get into higher education leadership. Hey, if you're checking us out, make sure you tell us where you got your doctorate degree from. Make sure you tell us what your doctorate degree's in. Congratulations to all the new doctors who are graduating this spring. It is absolutely awesome. And also, a lot of people don't know this, but we got to let you know, it is Teacher Appreciation Week. It's also Black Teacher Appreciation Day. So we want to show love to all the Black teachers, and that includes ministers, professors, anybody you consider a teacher. We want to show you some love today. This is why we're on the Doc Chat, to show you that we matter as doctors. We're doing great things. Without further ado, I'm going to let these great gentlemen introduce themselves. I'm going to start out with my brother, my frat, my mentor, Dr. Darren Gibson. Man, I'm so happy to finally have you on the Doc Chat. You've been following us for a while. And my brother, I thank you for being on here. Introduce yourself. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Turner. I appreciate it. And it is truly a pleasure to be here. So as my frat said, I am Dr. Darren Gibson. I have been in the education space part-time and full-time in total, roughly about 15 years. So I started in corporate America, moved over into government, and then now I'm exclusively in higher ed. My educational journey includes a few things, a couple master's degrees, and then I did a education specialist at Liberty University, and then went on to get my doctorate in organizational leadership. And so I'm just here to be a voice and to provide a different lens into the conversation. And I'm excited to be joined by these amazing pioneers and champions in the education space.
Indeed. We're going to go to our other brother from another color of Greekdom, Dr. Calvin Nobles. We appreciate you, my brother. Welcome to the show, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show tonight, Dr. Turner. My name is Dr. Calvin Nobles, and I'm currently the Portfolio Vice President and Dean of the School of Cybersecurity and Information Technology. And I got my credentials I got a doctorate in business from Temple. I got a doctorate in offensive cyber engineering from Capital Technology, and also got a Ph.D. in human factors from Capital Technology. And I've been in higher ed and leadership. Currently, I'm coming up close on my 36-month mark, but I've been teaching part-time since 2015.
Awesome. And we appreciate your service as well. A great Navy shipman. We appreciate you so very much. And last but definitely not least, my frat, my mentor, Dr. Darrell Cain. I'm telling you, I started in higher ed at formerly Ivy Tech Community College in April of 2011. He started in February of 2011. He left July of 2018, and I left at the end of July 2018. When my mentor was gone, I was gone. And I would tell y'all that because this man truly went to battle for me. He fought for me. He gave me opportunities that nobody else did, and I'm thankful for him. We're still connected. Dr. Darrell Cain, welcome, my brother, my frat. Welcome to the Doc Chat. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, appreciate that, Dr. Turner. I think, as you talk about that transition, I don't know that I think it's timing. And also too, I think that once you set yourself up for that transition, so I think a lot of it's you earned. So, but I appreciate that, the recognition. Also too, I just want to say it's great to be here, esteemed gentleman who's also been in higher education. And so I think for me, it's always a learning journey. So I look forward to the engagement and the conversation. My background, I started off in higher education probably over 23 years ago. Never really thought about being a president, never thought about being a vice president. Just things happen in your life and people come in your life. And so you don't know which way it's going to take you. But since I did start off in my journey anyway, I just recognized that I'm put in a place of position. I'm a first generation college student.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, it was not really understanding the formalities of higher education and knowing what that transition or how to navigate it. But I had people in my life, and I recall it was my dean at the time period at Indiana University. And I saw that was my first Black dean I ever saw, as dean of students. So that will really kind of intrigue me about learning more about higher education and opportunities. Needless to say, fast forward, I did my undergrad. I actually started off at a community college in Pasadena City College. Came back to Indiana, did my bachelor's degree at Indiana University, and actually I was a sports marketing major at the time period. Did my master's degree at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, and I actually was in the field for community college. Well, actually, it wasn't community college, but it was in higher education in terms of policy administration. And then I did my doctorate, Ph.D. at Virginia Tech University, Education Leadership Policy Studies. And then I also had a concentration in instructional technology as well. And so, but it's just an honor just to talk about my journey, my experience. So hopefully I can share some words of wisdom to help others and uplift them.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And the folks are tuning in. We appreciate y'all tuning in because we know how important this topic is. Dr. Brown, we appreciate you tuning in there. Dr. Drummer, we appreciate you tuning in. And last but not least, Dr. Nichols. I'm telling you, the docs are out because they want to know how you can flip this doctorate degree to get into some leadership in higher education. We're not going to waste no time. If you are checking us out, let us know where you're checking us out from. Let us know the work that you're doing. Let us know any questions that you have. I'm telling you, we want folks to tune into this and really get into what we're talking about, because I'm not going to lie, it's a frustrating thing to see everybody that don't look like you above you. Sometimes they don't have a doctorate degree. Sometimes they don't have the credentials you do. But guess what? You got to work under them because, you know, you love to work. But there is a way that you could do this, but you got to be patient. I'm not going to waste no time. I'm going to give it to Dr. Gibson. Tell us how you got into higher education leadership and what did it take to get there?
Oh, so for me, that's a pretty heavy question, but I'm going to give you the short version of the story. I essentially started from the bottom. And when I say the bottom, to break into the higher education space, kind of after graduate school and beyond, I secured an adjunct faculty position, essentially working full-time in another area. I was still in corporate at the time. And then I started teaching part-time. And so I taught part-time, across a number of different schools. One night I was at a community college, and the other night I was at a four-year university. The next night I was at another four-year university across town, or maybe teaching remotely on Zoom. Back when Blackboard was a thing, most institutions have gone away from Blackboard, Google and Brightspace and all of them, right? And so from there, when I decided that I wanted to leave kind of my full-time corporate environment and transition into higher ed full-time, I took a tenure track teaching job. And so I stayed in that role for a few years. And then when an opportunity came available for me to move into leadership, I started looking around for leadership positions. I felt stifled as a faculty member. And don't get me wrong, I think that there is a place for faculty. We need those folks. We need the people that are passionate about the topic, the subject matter, the content, literally, just being there for the student, right? But because I had come from a corporate background in leadership, I felt that my talents were not being utilized just strictly as an instructor. And so I started looking around for leadership roles within higher ed, and then I landed my first position as a department chair. And so I got a position as the department chair at a local community college here in Maryland. And I was there maybe 6 months and started doing a little this, a little that, started bringing some additional initiatives into the institution, started talking about new programs and such. And they were like, oh, you can do all that? Well, let's add this. And so the provost invited me to his office and said, hey, we've got this program that's sitting over here that's been kind of dormant. Would you be interested in leading it? And so, being new to the institution, I was still with them because I left Northern Virginia and then came to the college that I'm at now. And being new to the institution, I was still within my first year. So I was like, well, sure, I want to make an impression, right? Like, I want to make an impression. So sure, give it to me. I'll take it on with its, $500,000 grant and all of the things. And I took on that new portfolio, did very well. And then they moved into a role. And so it started for me from the bottom. Like, I literally kind of worked my way up in shorter stints, but, I started part-time and went, I would say, the traditional route from faculty, part-time faculty up.
I like that. And you touched on a couple of things I want people to realize. You talked about there was a budget, there was a certain program, and there were opportunities that came along. That's why I want people to really start to get. And we're going to go ahead and go to Dr. Nobles, because of course yours is not as traditional as what people would say, but you still got there. So tell us a little bit kind of about your path.
Absolutely. So I always tell people I spent the first formative years of my life in the United States Navy. I spent about 25 years in the Navy, and then I retired and I transitioned out. And before I was transitioning out, I got an offer from Wells Fargo to join their cybersecurity team, and I did. And so I worked at Wells Fargo for about 4 years, an amazing place. Did some amazing things there, and they just great people. Learned a lot, learned the corporate lingo, learned the corporate side, learned how to understand the banking business. And just one of the things I really learned along the way from a lot of people, people like Darrell, Dr. Darrell, that is, would always telling me, if you ever want to be in higher ed, you need to start making yourself look like an academic. He said you need to publish. You need to go to conferences and present. You need to do things that put that academic flavor on you. And so I did. I started publishing. I started going to conferences and presenting at industry conferences, at academic conferences. I even applied for a fellowship at the New America think tank in Washington, D.C. Did that for a year. That led to me getting a fellowship at Harvard at the Belfer Center. So I did that for a year. And then in 2018, I started really publishing and doing these things, hardcore. I was just like, I got to do it. And so, and then what happened in 2021, in 2018, I was at a conference down in Miami presenting, and the dean of the time of the school came up to me and said, would you be interested in teaching at Illinois Tech? And I was like, I just started at Wells Fargo. Let me, get my corporate appetite wet there. Let me stay there for a while. And so in 2021, one of the board of trustees at Illinois Tech heard me on a podcast and said, I want you to meet our dean of the College of Computing. And I said, sure, I wouldn't mind being a visiting professor there. So I talked with the dean. We talked about 45 minutes, really great conversation. And then he called me back a couple of days later and said, hey, look, I'm looking for a department chair. I want somebody that could come in here and lead, and somebody that could come in here and really make an impact from a cybersecurity perspective. And I like what I hear from you. I like what I see from you. And would you like to be considered for a national search? And, right away, I'm like, I'm giving up a corporate job, going into academia. So I was very forthcoming. I was like, here's my bottom line. And he said, that's steep, but let me talk to the provost. And he called me back in another couple of days and said, Provost said we can get there. Would you like to be in the national search? Wow. And I said, sure. So I went through the national search with about 8 candidates. And I got a call one day saying, we would like to offer you the job. And, I took the opportunity, and I left and I packed up and I moved to Chicago. And I was there for about 28 months. And then the opportunity came for the dean's job here at a University of Maryland Global Campus. And initially, when I got the first person reached out to me, I was lukewarm on it. And then something very interesting happened. I had a former president of a HBCU, who is not a president of a private school, reach out to me, and we had a mutual friend that we lost. And so we reached out and we made contact with each other, started talking. And within 15 minutes, I never met him before, 15 minutes, he said, hey, man, I just want to let you know you're in the wrong position.
Wow. Okay.
He said, you are a little too mature to be in the position you're in. You need to, if you're going to be in higher ed, you need to aim higher. You need to start navigating and maneuvering yourself for some of those senior level positions. That was a big pill to swallow, because I thought I was doing well. I thought I was doing the right thing. Here I am, tenure track at a research institution, first job as a department chair, and to get that, and then he also talked to me about, he said, look, you're on a different track. You're different. Tenure is not going to serve you well. Here's why. Because you're senior. You come in with a lot of leadership from the military. You have corporate experience with you. You need to start looking differently at your trajectory. And he said, if you want to be a professor and that's it, then go for tenure. But if you want to be in the senior leadership positions, then look for other routes, alternatives. And so that's what I took on, and that's what landed me here where I am today.
This is powerful. Absolutely powerful. Folks, if you're tuning in with us on the Doc Chat, let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you have any questions for these great leaders. And Dr. Noble said a few things I want to make sure that people understand as well. Conferences, going to conferences, getting recognized, being seen, presenting, writing, all those different types of things. And the big thing he said, networking and making sure that you're putting in the work. And we're going to go to my frat. Dr. Cain, because he definitely had a path that I'm telling you, two-time college president, you got to hear for yourself. So Dr. Cain, tell us how you got there and what were some of those moments where it was like, wow, this is really happening for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, like I said, it was really interesting to learn my pathway. Nothing I ever thought about pursuing. And I think that sometimes, situations come available and people see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And so my journey, once I finished up my undergrad, I always thought that, you know what, I want to work for Adidas or Nike because I was sports marketing at the time period. And for whatever reasons, those doors didn't open for me. So, but one of the things I did value, because when I was a sports marketing major, I used to work with the IU athletic department. And so I used to do a lot of events, work with the Student Government Association, MPHC. And so that really enlightened me in terms of how to be engaged at the university level with all of these specific entities, to build community. And so I just thought about, what brought me passion? It was just really that engagement. And so I said that, didn't really know how to become a faculty member or administrator. And so I still recall I applied at different institutions, and I saw a class and it just really said that it was a faculty, and it says teaching at a college. And I thought that was how you become a faculty, just taking one class, not knowing much about accreditation and having any graduate hours. I thought I'd take this class. But I ended up making a decision, learning more, and actually did my master's degree at Ball State University. But along my trajectory, one of the things I really found out early on, it goes back as Dr. Nobles and Dr. Gibson shared, that mentorship, having someone to sit down. I still remember I was working in the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs at Ball State, and Dr. Brenda Green, and she used to sit me down on the patio and let's talk for a little while. And she used to tell me about her story, her journey, how she became where she was at. And so I always had people who enlightened me. I still remember Dean Mikesell. He was the dean of students. He used to come with me. He was a white male, but he still would engage with me and kind of tell me about his story, his journey. But I think that was really the eye-opening opportunity for me. And fast forward, I took my first position. Actually, I started off in housing residence life. And so if you want to learn everything about the students, hey, working in residence life is going to open your eyes to everything. So if you want to learn student conduct, judicial process, student programming, leadership, we're working with resident assistants. So that was really a good opportunity. And I still reflect back on those meaningful moments that I had in building a team. And because as a leader, you have to know how to cultivate and create opportunities that's going to build a culture of excellence that's going to reflect the view. And so that was the beginning journey for me about leadership and really understanding the importance of leadership. After that, I just recognized that, I thought about some other opportunities, wanted to grow. And I think it was an opportunity that came available, to transition to another institution. I was at the University of Maryland at the time period. And so from that standpoint, sometimes I use negative words or comments when somebody doesn't believe in you or think you can do something. And I had a supervisor, and basically she's like, yeah, you'll be good as a counselor, because it was like a director of student conduct position. I was going to apply. It's like, no, you shouldn't go for that. You think you'd just be good as an advisor or a counselor.
Wow.
Like, okay. So I said, all right, well, I guess I got to prove somebody wrong. And that's lo and behold, that was my bulletin board material. Yeah. And so needless to say, I went on and pursued my doctorate degree, because I knew I would have to get some additional credentials. And from there, I just recognized that, took my first administrative position was a dean. I was a dean of academic affairs, and actually I transitioned from the university setting and took my first dean position at Atlanta Technical College. And so that was really a great opportunity. And because I had background in instructional technology, they asked that I can also serve in the capacity of overseeing all their distance education. And so opened up doors, never oversaw library program sciences. They says, hey, well, you got background, because I used to work as a consultant as well with No Levis at the time period. That was the name of them. I used to do retention consulting, and they saw I had that background. Well, let's put you in student support as well. So they just kept adding things onto me, and so it was a great experience in that mentorship. Again, because never saw myself being a VP or president, but then my vice president says, Darrell, I need you. I'm gonna push you. He said, I'm about to challenge you. She said that. I'm gonna challenge you. I want you to do these activities and some leadership programs. And she just kept pushing me and challenging me, and sometimes you have to recognize you have to be uncomfortable. And so when you be uncomfortable, that means that's when you embrace challenges and you learn and you grow. So I always was willing to recognize that. And not early on, I didn't recognize it, but I started embracing, being uncomfortable. And so for fast forward anyway, I left my dean and became a vice president of academic affairs. And because of my background experiences, and I was in the Dallas college system at that time period. And I was located at Eastfield College. And so again, a great opportunity for me. And lo and behold, opportunity came back available because of people you may know. And that go back to networking that Dr. Noble shared. Is that I got a call and the chancellor says, hey, you from Indiana? Met her at a conference, didn't really know her. And she's like, would you like to go back to Ivy Tech in Indiana, your home state? I'm going to have a vice chancellor for student affairs position. And so went ahead, put my name in the hat, and the doors open for me. So so that was really the learning experience. You definitely take advantage of the networking, the people, go to the conferences, professional development opportunities as well. Advancing from that, from Ivy Tech, I then thought about, becoming the president. And again, challenging yourself and being uncomfortable. And that's when I took the opportunity to become president, my first president position at Pierce College in the state of Washington. And I never lived
all over.
Nothing about Washington, didn't have no family in Washington. And that's why I want to reiterate, you have to learn to be uncomfortable, meaning that you can't always be familiar with your surroundings because you're never going to push yourself. I ain't gonna say you're not going to push yourself, but it may limit your opportunities. But if you're more mobile, you're going to have a lot more opportunities than if you're at one location, one college, one community. And that's just, again, if you're at a community college, you talk about over 1,300 community colleges. But if you're in that one state, guess what? It may only be 20 or 30. So therefore, you limit it. The percentages aren't in your favor to advance. But if you open yourself up and just knowing that everywhere you go doesn't have to be permanent. It's a stepping stone. You can grow. So don't always look at the next opportunities that this is my permanent position. I'm going to be here for 15 years. No, it's a growing opportunity. So seek it as that. And so I became the first president position at Pierce College. And then from there, took an interim president position, actually at Everett Community College as well. Did that. And again, great experience, great learning opportunity. And I would say just recognize that you kind of see yourselves and also surround yourself with people who's going to encourage you, who's also going to help you be accountable as well and challenge you, and so recognizing there's things that you're not going to always get right, but nobody's perfect, but can you learn and grow from those experiences? So just keep your eyes open and look for those opportunities. So that's pretty much a summary of my growth and in terms of my roles and positions I've served in.
Hey, I'm telling you, time flies when you're having fun, folks. I'm telling you, these brothers are on fire. They telling the real deal, and I'm about to unleash them now because I want them to get real with how it is in these leadership positions and what advice they give you. This is the Doc Chat with your host, Dr. John C. Turner. I got Dr. Gibson, Dr. Nobles, and Dr. Cain, and we are just getting started here, and I'm so glad that they're here with us today. Make sure you show them some love in the comments. Thank you for everybody tuning in. I'm going to throw it to Dr. Gibson. Now, let's just get real. If you could tell somebody viewing right now how they can get into leadership, maybe there was something that happened that you're like, man, that kind of messed me up, but I'm glad I learned it. Maybe it's something that's like, you better make sure you do this. What would you tell some folks within the next 3 to 5 minutes? Lay it on us.
So literally, I was going to kind of hope that I could interject on something that Dr. King said a moment ago. One of our frat brothers that is also kind of a quasi mentor. He hasn't been available as much as I need him to, but he's extremely busy being a college president, right? One of the things that he told me very early on when I look at the trajectory of his career is something that Dr. Cain said is he literally had to move around. So, you know, a position became available in this area, and then he moved to Florida, and then moved to Phoenix, and then moved to Oregon, and then moved to, you know what I mean? And every single time there was an opportunity to climb the ladder. And primarily that happened because of one of two reasons. Number one, either the pool of applicants in smaller areas is not as plentiful. Like prime example, I live here in the Washington, D.C. area, right? We've got more graduate degrees than PhDs and a little bit around here. And I'm just being honest. But if I move to an area, say somewhere in maybe Alabama or Mississippi or Tennessee or, you know, one of these Midwestern states, they also
cold, yeah.
The pool may not be as plentiful.
That's right.
Right? And so the opportunities there, they may be seeking talent that pool does not offer. So that's the first thing. Be comfortable with having to move around if you're looking at that career trajectory and you want to do it faster than just kind of waiting for the people above you to retire or die. Because we all know that in this industry, a lot of those senior level positions, they very rarely become available. You know, the folks, they get there, they sit and they either retire in them, you know, you've got, and then when they do retire, you now have to fight all of your colleagues because everybody has been waiting their turn, you know, to potentially move up. Or in a particular area or space, a geographical area, I've heard that sometimes the pool may be tainted, meaning I know all of the leaders in this current area, and we know all of their personalities and their leadership styles and the work that they have done. Being here in the Maryland area, all the community colleges are connected, right? Everybody knows somebody at one of the other institutions. And particularly in the leadership space, we have, you know, these affinity groups. So I know all the people that work in a particular department or area in other colleges in my region because we collaborate a lot. And so if you do something to kind of taint your reputation at one place, the next place doesn't want to touch you. And so you may have to move to a new state in order to be able to seek out other opportunities. So to piggyback and put a check mark on what Dr. Cain just said, look, man, if you are in a position and you see something that catches your eye, you know, over in Oregon somewhere, and it's an opportunity, you know, you may have to actually pack your stuff and go on over there to get that next move. And then you may come back, or you may have to go, you know, to Florida on the next round or to Vegas on the next round, or whatever the case may be. And so that happens not only in higher ed, but it also happens, in my opinion, in K-12. I have friends that work in K-12 and they're in populated areas like Metro DC, but, you know, principalships and superintendencies are, you know, more plentiful in the rural areas because the talent is not there. And so sometimes I have colleagues that are in K-12 that they drive sometimes 2 hours to work in some of these more rural areas because the talent pool there for these senior leadership positions is there. It's just not there. And so I would definitely say that if you are willing, you know, and you don't want to necessarily wait it out, you know, you may have to look at other areas. Dr. Nobles made a point earlier where when he started looking at a chair and a dean's role, he got thrown into what we call a national search. Meaning they will look at people that are outside of their immediate geographical area. So if you're willing to do that, you know, take that chance. It may pay off.
That's good. That's good right there. And something that I want to make sure people realize too is there are colleges and universities everywhere, but you have to ask yourself, do you want to be everywhere? Yes. That's the thing. I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn about a job that was probably like 10 or 15 miles away from Canada in Minnesota. I said, no, sir. Like, I'm good. I'm okay. Dr. Nobles, we want to go ahead and give it to you. What tips, tricks, whatever advice, what would you give somebody that would want to get into some higher ed leadership?
One of the things I would tell people is to be bold. Be bold in your moves. Be bold in what ways you can attain knowledge and expertise. You know, for instance, when I took this job here as the dean, I also was given an opportunity to become a board member. And so I wanted the board, and not only be a board member of the National Cryptologic Foundation, but I was asked to lead the education committee. And so I said, sure, you know, this is a great opportunity for me to learn. Now, Dr. Cain said it earlier, you know, you must learn to be uncomfortable. you must be comfortable being uncomfortable. And so I'm that way every day, right? And so here I am. So one of the members on the foundation, he said, Calvin, I would like to meet with you before our next meeting to talk strategy. And I said, sure. He said, can you meet me at this restaurant, which was about 30 minutes away from the school? So I worked my day and got in my car and drove to this restaurant. So we get to this restaurant and he was like, come on in. And when we get there, everybody know him. I said, you're very popular around here. And he was, he said, hey, I want you to meet Dr. Calvin Nobles. He's the education committee chair for the National Cryptology Foundation, And I said, man, everybody knows you. He said, well, they should. I own the place. And so, while I was there, the point I want to make is that we started talking strategy. And he gave me some really wise points. He said, Calvin, you're in charge of the education committee. Drive it. And remember, everybody's not going to like what you do. Be nice, but lead it. And he said, and to me, I'm already in a leadership position, but getting it from somebody like that, a really accomplished individual, man that made million times over, right? The restaurant was just one of his other side businesses, right? And so just sitting there for the 2 hours and talking with him about leading on boards and doing different things and just being able to take that information and just put it together on how it can help you develop a lens for leadership and dealing with people at that very senior level who comes in that's very affluent, right? And so I was just very fortunate to be, sitting at a table with him in his restaurant, of course, eating for free, right? And just, picking his brain, Harvard graduate, entrepreneur, and just being able to not just talk with him, but also ask him, can I count on you when I need you? Can I count on you if I ever need some advice? Can I count on you if I ever need some mentorship? And he was like, absolutely. Good. And so just being able to, to develop that. The other thing I would tell people is don't let people put you in a box. Because one of the things, my first day on the job, I remember I was reaching out to, when I was at Illinois Institute of Technology, I was reaching out to my fellow department chairs, and one of them said to me, I've been at this university 37 years, and you've been here a day. And I said to myself, if I'm here 37 years, I want somebody to kick me. It hurts because I don't plan on being here 37 years because I got a plan, right? And so to be bold and just to know that everybody's not going to be a cheerleader for you. Everybody's not going to see you as their equal because you didn't take the same path that they took to get there, right? But one thing I would tell you, I won that gentleman over. Not only did I win him over, he nominated me to be on so many different committees at the university, exposing me to senior leadership because I won him over in a short amount of time. He knew I was the real deal, right? And so I took that on. And so the other thing I would tell other people is to lead, lead others, and don't just try to take yourself there, right? And so one of the things I did when I was a department chair, I implemented an internal professional development program for my team. And we talked about things. And even though I'm no longer there, they still do the professional development because it's important. And I was able to transform the thinking of my team. And that transcended across the university where the president would see me somewhere and he would introduce me to trustees and other friends of the university. And he was like, this is Dr. Calvin Nobles. He's my most innovative leader. And he leads the most innovative department across the university. And, when you build that brand and people recognize that, just understand that, you can get in there, you can build, you can move. But I was very bold. But I wasn't bold in terms of being selfish. I always put the university first. What's good for the university? How do we advance the university? And also, how do we educate more students? Because Illinois Institute of Technology is a great university, but sometimes the thinking can be very, exclusive. And my goal was to make it more inclusive so we can have a better university with a wider impact on students from different populations and ethnic groups.
Telling you folks, this is amazing information. And some Dr. Nobles hit on, and before I drove it over to Dr. Cain, the board runs stuff. And if you don't understand how boards work, I definitely would say do your research on that, because I'm telling you, it might be a president there, but that board runs stuff. And not everybody that sits on that board does education the way it needs to be done. I'm not trying to slap anybody, but man, I'm telling you, I'm like, how in the world? But you know what? Then it goes into that political realm, goes into governmental dollars, all those different types of things. You want to get in this game of higher education leadership, you got to know what's going on. And I'm telling you, these doctors right here are telling the truth about it. Dr. Cain, what words would you give somebody who wants to give this? Because two-time president, I know you saw some stuff.
Yes. Saw some stuff, stepped in some stuff, got thrown in some stuff. So yes, a little bit of it all, but I think that builds character too, so I think that anybody who's thinking about leadership, working at a college or university, I think one, knowing what it is, what kind of environment, because values matter. So you have to understand, what are your values, and if you don't know your values, I say spend time focusing on that. What kind of community you want to be around, what type of environment that's going to cultivate the values. So if you have a value of, again, if it's, I just say diversity, equity, inclusion, but if that institution don't believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, for example, it's not going to align with your values. And then therefore you're going to have challenges. You wonder why things aren't happening, or the fact that, why students are feeling marginalized, where you think that they should be uplifted and embraced, but that's not happening. You have to recognize the values of creating and cultivating the interpersonal relations of others. Recognizing that, it could be a value that in terms of how you look at budget and fiscal management, So I would say, first of all, just understand your values, and then from there, seek opportunities where those institutions' values align with yours. And also, too, recognizing that all states, too, because you talk about the political environment we're in, it's not going to align with your values. So if you're finding that that state is not embracing things that you love, you're passionate about, then I wouldn't go to those states. I'd be very careful, because guess what? The funding and the politics, it's going to channel down. And so then that's why we have this policy that we have to do or follow along. Well, that's because, you got state policies and your legislation, and that's going to dictate how the organization is going to run. So again, you have to be very mindful about that. And I think that for me, I always knew what I believed in and opportunities that I saw. The second point I mentioned too is that when it comes to an institution environment, is recognizing the history, and meaning that who stepped in those shoes that you're about to step in.
Wow.
Because that culture could also be good, but it also could be very challenging. Some people, you work into an opportunity and they may have this long legacy and everybody expecting you to be them, but you're not going to be them. You have to be yourself. And so you have to be recognized. Can I be authentic in this environment? Can I lead the way I want to lead? Can I have the type of influence I want to have? And if you find that out early on, I wouldn't go into those situations. So, but if they willing to embrace change and recognize you as your authentic self and who and what you are, what you believe in, then I think those are great opportunities. And so you'll be able to grow and groom, and therefore you can have influence. Third area I just focus on too, in terms of just learning experiences, you have to foster community, both internal and external. So as I talk about the relationships and the politics that's involved, internal, you got to need to know that who are the people and what kind of team I'm gonna build, and that you have the opportunity to foster those relationships. Sometimes it's going to be individuals who aren't going to be aligned with you and think how you think. And so you have to recognize that if I'm a power influence, can that bring change? Or is that going to be a dynamic that's going to create challenges? And so how do I bring about, transformation in an environment where it's resistant?
That's good.
And it's not going to always be easy. And so you just have to recognize that those are some challenges, but you have to have a strategy. And if you walk into those environments, just knowing what's the strategy, how am I going to be able to influence, how I'm going to cultivate, and knowing your people, knowing who's on your team, where's the synergy. And so, as you know, in every environment, there's things that's going to happen in front of you, but there's going to be a lot of things happening behind you that you're not going to know. And so where you can actually learn and also just recognize that how you build people up. And I always been a believer of just building and cultivating people, because I think that for me, it's not necessarily about the position or title to have, but it's my purpose. So what's my purpose? And I always say my purpose is to help individuals reach their fullest potential when others don't believe in them. That's my purpose. And so I live by my purpose in my job. My title is what it is, but I live by my purpose. So understanding what's your purpose, and that's how you're going to cultivate and recognize where you can actually be able to lead. The last thing I just talk about too is recognizing. I talked a little bit about the fiscal environment, but you have to understand budgets, numbers, they matter.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm sure you all worked in environments where they're saying, well, we don't have enough resources, or we're going to have to cut this particular area, or we may have to downsize, but I think that for even understanding the numbers is also too just recognizing how budgets are developed and created. And so if you don't know that, get involved in the various committees, ask to participate, to learn how to strategize and actually be involved in the budgetary process. And so I think that's just going to serve really important to you as you look at your journey, because that's not going to change. And looking at the fiscal climate as it becomes more challenging, some states have more resources than others, some school has more, but at the same time, you're not going to have an abundance. And so, but you need to understand how to strategize and recognize the fiscal dynamics of your institution that you're working in. And then also too, the next other point is just how do you become innovative? So when you do have those constraints, you have to think beyond just within those limits. And so therefore your sphere of influence, and I just use an example. For example, it could be a private-public partnership. It could be a way of public-public partnership. You could be working partner in programs with, maybe it's your local YMCA, maybe it's a nonprofit, particularly like housing, for example, where students who may not have housing accommodation, but are there county funds to help support that? And so think about, there may be limitations in terms of property, of access to property for land acquisitions, but there could be opportunities to do something with within your local community. So again, I just want to emphasize that you have to think of innovative and also creative in terms of just even when you have those budgetary constraints as well. So those are probably just the high points I would just emphasize on.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and I appreciate Dr. Cain. I remember he told me years ago, he's like, you got to be able to sell yourself. Don't think because you just got that doctorate degree, somebody's going to throw you in leadership. It just don't happen that way. You have to be able to sell yourself. You have to have some good niches on work that you work in. What is your niche? What do you do well, and what can carry you to the top, and cultivate that. And so I want to go to Dr. Gibson real quick. I'm telling y'all, thank y'all for tuning in. I see the comments coming in. Everybody that's tuning in, we appreciate y'all. How can people learn, Dr. Gibson, how to be in leadership? I think that's something that people sometimes always ask and always wonder. But what are some good tips to be able to learn how to do this thing called higher ed leadership?
That's a loaded question, primarily for me, because the way I see leadership, some leaders are born and some leaders are groomed, right? Yeah. And that's how I see the lens of leadership. What I will say is that in all of the roles that I've had, whether they have been in higher ed or not, it has groomed me for the space that I am in and the space that I'm moving to and beyond. Because not only is it important for you to understand your area and your lane in which you are operating, but it's also important to be able to make sure that you know how to relate to people. I think that was probably one of my biggest and strongest aha moments when I started leading, is just because I'm the boss doesn't mean I have to have this attitude of arrogance because I run things and everybody reports to me, right? I had to learn to be empathetic and to be a listener and to make sure that I saw the people first and the work second. And that was extremely important. And once I really kind of got that light bulb sort of went off, I understood that I'm human just like they are, regardless of what level of leadership I'm in, and life will life. And so when people come to you with their problems, their issues, their celebratory things, all of the things, you need to be a real person first and then deal with the work second. So that's my first little nugget there is some leaders are born, they have it, they have that natural instinct, to be able to cultivate a following, and some are groomed. But if the people that you are leading do not respect you as an individual, I don't care how many credentials and degrees you have, they're not going to follow and they're not going to listen. So your agenda and your strategic plan, whatever it is that you're working toward, you're not going to be able to advance in that space because everybody's working in these individual silos and they're not following you, the person that is supposed to be their leader. And so it's, in my view, it's very important to be able to understand your people, understand their strengths, and then align those strengths with the work. And so a point that Dr. Nobles made earlier, he said, oh, I had a faculty member that had been at the university 37 years. That might be great for you, and I don't knock that for anyone. I think it's important that we have kind of sort of those knowledge, those people that bring that institutional knowledge because they've been there since however long. But we also need to be able to bring in new people that have the mindset and the wherewithal to be able to innovate what's happening now, to be able to operate in the current space and be able to think in a future space. And I struggled with that when I came into the role that I was in. I had a lot of what I would call seasoned people. I don't like to call them senior. But, I had faculty in my department 42 years, 45, 35, wow. 30. And they always would come to me when I would have a new idea and say, well, we never did that, or we always did it this way, or we always did it that way. Yeah. And my first immediate thought was, well, what I would say, out on the street, we did it this way. And it helped to increase proficiency, and it reduced all this redundancy that we have going on. So to get them to embrace something new, you have to not only be able to speak the talk, you also have to be able to walk and be willing to be in the trenches as well. So that's my first thing. What I would also say is, if you're in a collegial environment right now, volunteer to do things outside of your role. Be in a space where you're willing to cross-collateralize and collaborate with other departments and units within the institution and learn what they do and do the committee work so that when opportunities do arise, you have the firsthand knowledge to be able to speak directly to those roles and opportunities. You staying in the lane of whatever your job is, whether it's student affairs or advising or what have you, when an opportunity to elevate comes and you've only done advising, it is essentially hard to sell yourself because your portfolio is this small. You've only done this, right? Yeah. You could be in an advising role and still be willing to serve on a hiring committee for this area over here, or, serve in assessments and even be a reader, for an example, in an assessment committee. So I would say embrace those opportunities that come along, even if you have to volunteer. Let's be clear. Right. You have to, a lot of times, have to volunteer for work in higher education institutions that you're not getting paid for, because your role is advising or your role is faculty. But that knowledge, once you gain it, no one can take it away. So the more you build your portfolio, the more you build your body of work and your body of knowledge. So when the opportunities do arise, you have the ability to be able to speak directly to it. That is what has propelled me within my journey. And that's actually, I shared with you guys before we started the call, I literally just got a new role a month ago. Within 2 weeks, I am moving to another institution as a new associate vice president. And so the things that I've learned in my current role, literally, as I stated, I volunteer for a lot. I'm on this committee. When we had accreditation come, I led one of the standards. I wanted to be right involved because that allowed me to see the institution for what they're doing, also see some of the gaps and some of the vulnerabilities, and be able to speak to the strategies that we're using to help increase retention, reduce students from leaving, making sure that we've got, our graduation rates below 150%, all of the things that you would normally do essentially in a faculty role, but you now have that knowledge. So when those leadership positions come up, you can speak to the strategies that institutions want in a leader. They don't want just somebody that can come and lead people. What are you doing to be able to advance the institution? What things can you bring to the table that we can utilize here to be able to propel us forward as an organization. I think that's extremely important as well.
That's good. That's good. And Dr. Nobles, where can people get some learning at? Where can they learn how to become a leader that is a proper leader for higher education?
Absolutely. This is a really good question, and I agree with Dr. Gibson here. It's a very loaded question. And so I would tell you how one of the things that I always do, one of the things that I always learned was that as soon as you get to an organization, ask for the strategic plan.
Absolutely.
Because once you understand the strategic plan, you know where the organization is headed, then you need to make sure you aligning your efforts with that, especially if you're in a leadership position. You're going to have some one-offs, and things are going to evolve and they're going to morph, but you need to be aligning yourself to that strategic plan in as much as possible. The other thing, as a leader, you also have to bring your team with you, right? And so I used to tell my faculty all the time, as faculty members, you can take tactical actions that have strategic implications, right? And so how do we avoid those things? And so I used to tell my faculty members, before you start commenting on things that the leadership is doing, you need to understand the business. Because we want butts and seats in the classroom. We want max student population, max student growth. But guess what? There's a business aspect to this. And most of us as faculty members, sometimes we forget that. But how we spend the money? Dr. Cain talked about the budget aspect. That's key. You got to know how we're budgeting. You got to know the business model of the university, and you got to know where we're taking the university and what the university is trying to move. And faculty members sometimes can get stuck into just being a faculty member. And so Dr. Gibson gave some really good points there about getting involved on committees. One of the committees that I had the pleasure of serving on was a provost search committee. And we use an executive search firm. And let me tell you, and I'll just go ahead and just say it, that sometimes the executive search committee is exactly that.
There you go.
Sometimes you have to think and do things differently, because sometimes they don't really understand all the politics of the university, or they don't know what the skeletons are at the university, right? And so sometimes you have to kind of coach them. Nah, I know you're looking at this, but we need to really pay attention to this.
There you go.
And so one of the things that I noticed when I was on the provost search committee is that my fellow faculty members and even some of my fellow department chairs was like, oh, they'll make comments like, this person hasn't published in a while. This person hasn't done that. And then I was, I'm thinking, we're not looking for a peer. We're looking for a strategic leader. So I'm not looking for somebody to publish with. I'm looking for somebody that's going to drive the university to success. And so just being able to see things like that, as a leader, and being able to speak out on it, right? Even though, mind you, when I was the most junior person in time at a university when I was on that search committee. Everybody else 15, 20, 30 years in. There was one lady with 42 years in. And so here I am, barely got 2 years in, speaking like I'm the most authoritative individual at the board, because I'm like, I understand what's going on. This isn't new when we're talking about hiring. I've hired people before, so I know exactly what we need to be doing and what we're looking for. So I need to speak up and call it out. And so sometimes being a leader is like I said earlier, you have to be bold. And sometimes being bold means not being popular or saying things that are popular, but saying things that need to be said, right? And so my other point that I want to make here before I turn it over here is that it's so important to develop those under you. Absolutely. You have to develop those under you, because of the university, we don't really have a bench sometimes. We don't have the funding to have a bench, right? And so you have to train faculty members to do multiple things and give them the ability to excel, give them the ability to develop. And a lot of times that development, if you're doing it right, you'll see the maturity in that person, and that person will start to realize, I'm more than a faculty member. I'm a leader, and I'm impacting the university in a positive way. And so that's the growth, and that's the return on investment of pouring into your people as a leader. And so as a leader, it's not necessarily about me. It's about my team, our progress, and how we are advancing the university and impacting the university in a positive manner.
That's right. So you're there to fill gaps, people. I want people to do that. Real quick, Dr. Gibson, before we get to Dr. Cain.
Well, I've got to piggyback on something that Dr. Noble said. I think it's extremely important. I have to echo the sentiment on understanding where your institution is at a macro level, even as a faculty, coordinator, staff, wherever you are. But in that micro space, you also have to understand the bigger picture. You must, because I've seen faculty, staff, when a change comes down from senior leadership, everybody wants to complain, but they don't know the reason why that change was made. Right? So if you get into understanding the organization and the business of the organization, let's be clear, a college is a business. I don't care if it's state supported, private, whatever it is, junior, a college is a business. And we have to run the business aspect of it so that we can run the educational aspect of it.
That's good.
So we have to learn, we have to know. The folks at the lower levels need to at least be inquisitive enough to find out, well, if a change is being made, why is senior leadership doing this? Because a lot of times leaders may make decisions and they won't share, but you as a member of that organization, you do have a right to ask, and they will share what they can. And so, you know, when we're looking at it from a management and a leadership perspective, you know, we manage processes. We lead top down, but as lower level folks, we also have to be in the space to be able to manage up and be able to get the information that we need. So I have to echo that. You got to know what's happening in your organization and not just at your level.
That's good. That's good. Dr. Cain, let's go ahead and wrap us up. Let us know, how can people learn how to be a leader? What are some good tips you would bring?
Yeah, well, I think one starts with who you are in terms of your character, in terms of your ethical conduct, also too, where there is accountability. And so you have to demonstrate that. And that's why it goes back to understanding what are your values and how you learn your values. And I think the other part of that too is just knowing that you're always going to have integrity. And so you're not going to compromise. Whether you talk about good or bad, you're never going to put yourself or your institution in a compromising position. So that's the other part I would just share. I think leadership also too begins, you know, a lot of times we talk about the different ways of leadership and principles of leadership, but I don't know. I try to keep it simple, and I just go back to what my mother, my grandmother, things they taught me. Be humble. How do you treat people? You have to show grace, empathy. Have to show care for other individuals. You have to make sure that individuals are also being held accountable. Just no different than my mother and grandmother. If I didn't do something, they're going to hold me accountable. And so I think a lot of that just translates, you know, to what you can do in terms of your institution or whatever role you play, is understanding what are those characteristics that make effective leaders. The other part I would just share too is think about leaders who you thought were in high esteem, you know, who you think are in high esteem. And so what characteristics do they bring? Could be a teacher, could be a parent, it could be a president of a past president, could be the dean, you know, but what characteristic and mannerism? How are they able to lead? How they're able to have success? What do they do? And what are the attributes that you can pick up and learn from them? So observation, you know, so make sure that you always recognize that I'm in the classroom, I'm learning. And so when you go on your job, who you're learning from, and make sure that you pick up various points. That's really important. The other part, I think, in terms of leadership too, you know, is just recognizing, we talked about leading teams, but cultivating teams and influencing people is super critical. And I agree that, you know, you have to empower people. You can't do it all. And if you think that you are, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So therefore, to learn how to empower people and also demonstrate a balance with accountability as well. Because again, they're not going to get everything right, but you also have to recognize, how can I teach? How can I help them to learn what it is, and what training opportunities that I need to, if I can't do it, who do I need to connect them with to learn, or what organizations that I need to have them affiliated to grow as well. So I think that's the other part. Always see yourselves as a teacher. You know, always engage, even if that may not be your administrative title, but you're here to develop others. And I think that's the other part of it. I'll share too that one of the things also too really critical in terms of becoming a leader, understanding your data. We talk about strategy, strategic planning. You need to know your data. You need to know what's driving the indicators in terms of performance indicators for your institution. What are the leading indicators? What are lagging indicators? What are those influencers? And so knowing your data, and you don't have to be a guru of institutional research. You need to make sure that you have enough information, that you have enough knowledge to help make an informed decision. And therefore, where's the data at?
Right.
And you can't operate in data is just being siloed, you know. So how do you democratize the data? Therefore, it's shared across the board. Everybody sees it. Everybody understands. And so you want to make sure that you understand your data and analysis. So therefore, you know what strategic indicators you want to spend your time on. The next thing I'll just share too is you got to be a problem solver. I mean, any particular situation you may be in versus saying, why are we doing it this way? Or man, it doesn't work, or I can't believe they did it. Put yourself in the position of being a problem solver. I mean, leaders, I speak for myself. I want people on my team that can help problem solve. I want individuals that can help figure it out, not just complain about it, but figuring it out. And so if you recognize that students aren't logging into class in a timely manner, which strategies can you put in place to help make sure they log on? Or what policies do we need to change to make sure if that's having an impact on students from logging on their class in a timely manner? Well, let's open up the class, 2 weeks in advance rather than a week before. But you have to be a problem solver, help understand. And if you can understand how to fix problems, then leaders are going to come to you. You don't have to go to them. They're going to be attracted to you. The last thing I'll just share too, in terms of just formalized training, is also to find out where there's organizations, whether I remember I participated, it was the Mid-Level Leadership Institute. So if you're looking to become that next level department chair or dean, there's opportunities. Organizations can have that training. Ask whoever your leader is, and if they're professional development funds, but you can be affiliated in those formalized training. If you're looking to be an executive leader, like for example, there's the Future Leadership Institute through AACC, American Association for Community College. There's the Future Leadership Institute, the League of Innovation. But all these organizations have leadership opportunities. Make sure that you develop a professional development plan and map it out for the next 5 years. Write it down, what you need to be involved in and engage, then work with individuals that's going to help you to make sure you can participate and be fully engaged in those activities. The last thing I'll mention too is not probably a cost associated with it, but there may be a cost of time. And I would say get involved with your accreditation. Learn to understand. For me, I became involved early on. I was a part of my peer review for SAC, Southern Association for Colleges and Schools, accreditation. You get to learn everything about the institution.
Wow.
From the budget, getting students, getting the retention, quality assurance, instruction. You're going to have it all. So make sure you take advantage. And even now, I'm a part of the Higher Learning Commission. And so still doing peer reviews. So because I want to continue to learn. Also, too, right now, I'm on the board for the Council for Higher Education Accreditation. And that's the accrediting body that accredits all of the National Accrediting Association for schools and programs. But the accreditation, you're going to learn everything. And so I would say take advantage of how you can get involved and start off looking at, see if you can be peer review or be a part of the committee for your accreditation at your institution.
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. I'm telling y'all, folks, an hour of power. You see how quickly it goes by, but these doctors shared some incredible information. I'm going to give them just a couple minutes to tell us where you can find them at, how you can connect with them, and even maybe some of the work that they're doing now. So Dr. Gibson, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure sharing the platform with these amazing gentlemen. They are champions, and literally, I look forward to learning more from each and every one of them, including you, Dr. Turner. You always reach out to me. We have some amazing conversations, and I enjoy our camaraderie for sure. For anyone that wants to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think my page is either Darren Gibson or Dr. Darren Gibson. It has all of the other links and QR codes for my socials and all of the things. So feel free to connect with me. I'm more than open and interested in connecting with anyone and growing my network.
Awesome. And is there anything you're working on? So you got a shirt there. Just wanted to mention that. Is there anything you're working on?
Well, actually, this was just something that I threw on, but
It's all right.
I'm all about social impact, man. I spent a year at the University of Pennsylvania when I was doing my graduate work, and I did a fellowship with them at the Center for Social Impact Strategy. So I'm all about doing work in the community to make community impact. That's me in my what I would call my side world, and higher ed is my day world. And the two, they really kind of overlap, you know, particularly when we're living and working in areas of marginalized individuals. If you're living and working in areas that are highly minority populated, we want to be able to have that impact in our communities. So I just threw this on today just to kind of give a little shout out and you know, for the work, because working in a higher education space, let's be clear, we literally could go out and be doing other things. We've all worked in corporate. We could be out making way more money. We should and do this work because we want to do this work. You have to have a passion to be in the field of education. And so I don't take that for granted for any of my colleagues that either currently work in this space or want to inspire to work in this space. It's a calling. It's not necessarily for the money.
Love it. Absolutely love it. That is Dr. Darren Gibson, everybody. We appreciate you, Frat. I appreciate you. Dr. Calvin Nobles, where can people find you? What's some other work that you're possibly working on? And just thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Turner. And thank you for these bringing me together with these fine leaders here. I tell you what, I just envision myself talking with all of you going forward now. So when I have a problem, we got a problem, right? So,
see, we got each other's back for sure.
Absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very busy on LinkedIn. So just type in Calvin Nobles Ph.D. and my name will pop up right away. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter. Again, just type in Dr. Calvin Nobles and I'll pop up right away. One of the things that I'm working on right now, I'm working with a federal agency right now on a human factors initiative that's going to be coming out here real soon. So just that I've been working with them hand in hand because of my background as a human factors engineer in cybersecurity. So that initiative is going on. And recently, about 2 weeks ago, I've been named the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society Cyber Technical Group Chair. So I'll lead that organization for 2 years, started in January. My tenure starts in January. So I look forward to that because that's another opportunity to lead an area that's so vital to what we do in cybersecurity. So most people can see me around most conferences dealing with human factors and AI, human factors and cybersecurity. That's what that's one of my passions as well. So when I need a break from, break away from the dean's desk, right? Those are some things where I go back to my research days and pick up that research and continue to do that. And so, again, you can also find me on, just Google my name, something will pop up and you'll get my email address. I'm out there and I look forward to just collaborating and talking with anybody and it's trying to help anybody that I can as well.
We love that. We love that. And it has popped up already. I'm telling you, that's why I'm telling them to let you all know where you can find them. That's why I'm letting them know. So definitely connect with them on LinkedIn. That is definitely the best place to do that. And last but not least, Dr. Darrell Cain, I definitely want to say before we get out for sure, Dr. Cain and Dr. Gibson and Dr. Nobles kind of went into this. He looked at me as somebody coming up next. And I appreciate that. He gave me an opportunity to create a camp for males when we were at Ivy Tech. And he walked in that office. He's like, I need you to create this camp. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like, get a proposal together. We'll take it to the folks who need to know what's going on. And we ran that camp for 2 years. And we saw males graduate from the community college who had the lowest retention of anybody graduating. And I appreciate that because somebody reached out to me at Marion University and said, I saw you did that camp at Ivy Tech. Can you come do that over here? Oh, by the way, we'll give you $15,000 to do it. I said, when do I sign up for that? So now I became somebody doing work at this community college. And now I was doing it as a program manager or consultant at another college. And that's all because of this man right here, Dr. Darrell Cain. I appreciate you, my brother. I definitely do. Where can folks find you and what are you working on as well?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, Dr. Turner, I know you're sharing that I gave you maybe some insight, but you earned it. So I didn't really, all I did was just pull it out of you. So, you already demonstrated that you have the capacity and ability to do it. So But yeah, for me, LinkedIn is probably the best way to connect with me. And so I think that's already shared on the link, for at least for this dialogue. And so you can follow me that way and connect with me. The other opportunities, what I'm really doing right now, I do a couple of things. I currently talk about our Maryland connection. I teach in a doctoral program at the University of Maryland Global Campus in Community College Policy and Administration. So if you're thinking about a PhD program and you want to learn more about what the opportunities may be, then reach out to me. I can make sure that we give you the information sessions and other ways to start that journey, if that's something of interest. I also teach in our Learning Design Technology program. It's a master's degree program. But as you talk about, think about your niche. I felt my niche was more about how do I blend administration and technology together. And so how to help learning and improve learning. So I think that's something else important to share with you is you have to find out what it is that's going to distinguish you from others. But that's another program. The other endeavors that I'm involved in, I currently serve as, I mentioned about CHIA, so I'm on the board for the Council for Higher Education Accreditation. And so again, if you ever want to learn more about accreditation and understanding how regional as well as the national and the federal level and accrediting bodies, again, you can find more information from me about that. And lastly, I share is that I've been doing some consulting too. I work with a company called Forelli. And so you can look them up. And if your institution is having challenges with enrollment management, student success, even from IT challenges, Forelli has a comprehensive platform. And so as a consultant, love to connect. And if I can't do it, then, I'm sure somebody else at the organization will. So again, those are just some endeavors I'm currently involved in. And so look forward to connecting with anyone who reaches out in the future.
And that's why I had to have them say, look, I'm a higher ed, I've done higher ed, but I do some other stuff too now, Don't put me in that box like Dr. Darrell was talking about. So I appreciate these brothers. They are awesome. Definitely amazing, doing great things. This is the Doc Chat, folks. Thank you for everybody that tuned in, all the commenters, everybody that came through. I appreciate that. We'll touch base with some of you guys in the comments as well. But if there's anything you all need, let us know. Next week, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. Make sure I get that. And we have 3 Black women therapists that are going to come on and talk about some things you can do to make sure your mental health is together. So, hey, we want to make sure we're hitting all the angles with great doctors doing great things. And we do that here on the Doc Chat. So, unto Dr. Darrell Cain, Dr. Calvin Nobles, Dr. Darren Gibson, thank y'all. Thank y'all so very much. The power is here on the Doc Chat. We're doing great things. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for going into overtime with us a little bit. We appreciate y'all. And I'm telling y'all, we are going to be back with some great episodes, doing some great things, because here on the Doc Chat, this is a doctor movement, and we truly show you what a doctor looks like. Until next time, we all say peace out.